Okay, Amboa Stitch, Danestara, Tonche, Tatawao. Good afternoon. Welcome to another session of the Journey to Indigenization. Nitanako Magayapi, John Fischer Nitsiga-san. I'm John Fischer, Director of the Aniskum Center, and I'll be serving as your MC for this session. We live in Alberta, a province that has had the greatest number of residential schools. Today, we acknowledge the tragedies of removing children from their families and separating them from their lands. And we honor the people of Treaty 7, the Siksikapi, the Stina, the Eyahe Nakota, and Métis Nation, Region 3. To open today's session, we have respected and loved elders Alveea and Spike Eagle Speaker. I would like to offer this tobacco to the earth for the opening that you will give us today. Thank you. Spike and Alveea Eagle Speaker are language teachers, Blackfoot Society members, community organizers, and advocates for Siksika. We're so fortunate to have them join us for the first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Alveea, Spike.
Hayo nato siyaki. Hayo nakanato apikipitake wakong kinawa kanito sakin nanak. Ogi sepeda piu pa no kute po imo kinana no kaksiste koi. Hayo sepeda piu pa sky osis coach pinana nika ikina piki sepeda piu pa. Hayo sepeda piu pa no kute po imo kinana sepeda piu. Sakko muita piksi sepeda piu pa. Oki sepeda piu pa nakaikanakka siwaki sepeda piu. Nerkanen katsimateaks pumuisnan. Ani katsimu ihkane knoksiskanotoni. Oki sepeda piu kiskanotoni aatsit sae puispinan. Tapuatsimu ihkatumu pinnan sepeda piu pa. Ikskeikin mata piuan kaksisiko ihka. Ani katsikaskani pinnan ani kanitsitskaskani maatsots pinnan. Oki sepeda piu pa tega kukai katu pinnan atsimo ihkane sepeda piu ihtekkinä pistutsi panika aiki takupikanika ihteksim stopikanika aiki tsipike sepeda piu. Oki sepeda piu panaka istan kakatumakan kamatsimo ihkane ketkana sihkumukpuanika kanasuka piik anika kanekkinä piik. Oki sepeda piu panaka nawakanikistuma piik. Ainakin stopiakin teessukin näkyvistä. Oki kenäkohkuumista myötit koneen ihkatsimat mua. Ani kaatsimu ihkaakin taameessaksi mä teessukin näkyvistä. Aios se päätä piu panna kaistaan kaakivakin määnistä sitä piuakin se päätä piu. Nyt kan peikkuja on kokeessa kuikissa päätä piupaa. Oki naasseksi keinava piikani amskavi piikani vakke noussiksi kai. Nyt kan peikkuja on nikakin tiskani maatsuki pinnaani. Etä suka piissi päätä piupaa. Anika tajakaa poua tuupinnaani kissima tuupinnaani kanoksissa kuik. Tahkika kohtaistumissa kohspinnaan. Naksaipisi pinnaani ja se päätä piupaa. Oki se päätä piupaaksi ne pohtuu miksi annoksissa kuikissa päätä piup. Kiuatseksi kikkinä piuaista päätä piup. Atsimu ihkaani kanika tega kohtuma teepiuks pinnaanista päätä piup. Oki se päätä piupaatsi tuuttukamanistup. Niistä vatsemaani naapiussani. Messami päätä peossani. Kihta vapsani.
Ei.
I just want to say just a word on today. When I woke up this morning today, it brought tears to my eyes. It brought tears to my eyes because of the family members we have that are not found today on my reservation and all other reservations. It hurts me today But the best thing we can do, all of us that are suffering today of our losses of our loved ones, the best thing to do is just to hang on to your prayers. That's the best we can do to help each other overcome whatever tragedy we have gone through. And we learned from it. Today, I learned, doesn't matter what happens in the world, all we need to do is to be kind to one another, to love each other each and every day. That is my message to everyone that's listening. It's a short day.
You know, we were told to we participated in this morning prayer where a lot of people are asked to go out in the morning and pray. We were outside doing that. I've never really had a chance to sit down and really think of all these students that never returned home. And that's what these colors of these shirts represent, is those kids that never got to see their parents again. And I think one of the reasons I don't like thinking about it or talking about it is because I spent 10 years in school, residential school. I was one of those kids that was playing out in the front yard and got in this van when some of my friends were already in the van and they were eating candy. And that's how I got into the van. They told me to come and eat candy. I jumped in there. I didn't see my mother for a year, till the following year. And they call it the scoop. Me, I call it they stole us. They were thieves. They stole us from our parents and put us into an institution that had no culture towards who we were. And I don't like thinking about it, especially these kids that never went home. I was one of these boys that I constantly ran away from school just to go home to my parents. And I've told my kids and my wife a lot of stories of when I ran through those fields, how I ran down to the river bottom, how I managed to put logs on the water and float down the river just to get home. I went down a river about 20 miles just to get home. And I was fortunate the river went right by my house, behind the house, about 100 yards. And I got off, I was home. And I think about those things. I managed to find my way home, even though every time I ran away, I was punished every time I returned. But I think about the kids that never had a chance to run away. I think about the kids that never had a chance to see their parents again. Or today, you know, we talk about these children, and a lot of people knew of these deaths years ago. Our elders knew long time ago how some of these kids disappeared, and they talked about it, but nothing was ever done. And that's what I wonder about today. We have a big national day, but all in the end, what are they going to do? The government knows who done these to our people. The government and the politicians, they know who done it. The priests and the churches, they know who done it. They can't turn around and say, oh, we don't know nothing about it, which I'm hearing already. They were the predators. They were the monsters that did this to us. And at the same time, they were the cross while they done that to us. And I'm glad every time I ran away from school, I never did get caught. And I guess maybe that's the only victory I can say, is I never got caught. I made it home. But I think about the young kids that couldn't run away, that couldn't make it. And pray hard for these kids, you know. Pray hard for the parents. We need to bring closure. 60 years they tried to assimilate us. Never happened. I haven't ran into one treaty Indian that was assimilated. I haven't ran into any of them, even though we were punished, and tragedy also took part with these kids. It's part of history now. It's part of our history that it's not a Canadian problem anymore. It's a worldwide problem. It's a worldwide thing how non-native people came and didn't appreciate how we shared our land so that they can prosper right to this very day. Thank you.
John, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Alveen and Spike. Thank you for your words. Thank you for the blessing. Today, we are acknowledging the first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. This is the response, for our response, that is Call 80 from the Calls to Action by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. Call 80 says, we call upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish as a statutory holiday a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to honor survivors, their families and communities, and ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential school remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. This is an outcome of those survivors, the children who came home, who enacted the largest class action lawsuit in Canada that triggered, among many things, the formation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Mount Royal University has been holding events during the journey to Indigenization. And today we formally acknowledge the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. It's my privilege to introduce Dr. Tim Rahilly, President and Vice Chancellor of Mount Royal University, to speak about the day and the important work that we're doing.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Alveea and Spike, for the blessing and for the words of your sharing your journey. And I certainly I'd like to add my words of welcome to all of you who are here today, whether you're joining us virtually from a different city or province, or if you're joining us right from your desk in Mount Royal. I believe it is a great responsibility for our university to be the host of the Journey to Indigenization events that are taking place right now from September 22nd to October 4th, which of course includes the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which we're observing today. And I believe that education through lived experiences, elders, researchers, and discussions is what gets us closer to the truth, which we heard a little bit about earlier. This is where we need to start to make any real change moving forward. Today marks the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in Canada. It's a day to honor the lost children, survivors of residential schools, and the impact it continues to have on families and communities. And let me make this perfectly clear, I believe indeed on all of us, whether we're Indigenous or not. We wear our orange shirts today as a commemorative symbol, a reminder of the conversations that must be had around the effects of residential schools and the systems that must be rebuilt in collaboration with the people who were intentionally left out of decision making. And I believe universities absolutely have the role in this important work. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action cites Indigenization as a crucial means of promoting cross-cultural understanding, creating empathy and mutual respect and intercultural understanding. And Mount Royal is committed to doing its part to rebuild relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in our city or on our campus and beyond. And our Indigenous strategic plan is one way we have strengthened our commitment to Indigenous people, but I know there are many consultations and much work to do, and the work remains ahead of us. But it's essential that we start with a broad acknowledgement of the truth, and I think that's what today is about. Today is an opportunity to understand the past, acknowledge it, as we collectively try to move forward. And I'm proud that MRU is a place that embraces Indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing through supporting Indigenous learners, sharing Indigenous experiences, and of course, including all our students, faculty, and staff that make up our campus community in all of that. Mount Royal is a university that responds to the needs of our community, and I believe that the difficult conversations and work required around truth and reconciliation and decolonization is part of that commitment that we've made to the nation and to all those who choose to be part of the MRU community. Our students are engaged and want to make way for change. Instructors are rethinking how they teach, considering a culturally responsive curriculum. Leaders are being thoughtful, at least this leader is trying to be thoughtful about what we're trying to accomplish as a university and providing necessary direction. This, of course, includes the good work of many folks, including our new colleague, Dr. Linda Manyguns, our Associate Vice President of Indigenization and Decolonization, along with leaders from the Aniskum Center who work alongside her. And I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to John Fischer and his team for many years of dedicated service to this campus community. We are fortunate to have Dr. Linda Manyguns with us today, and I know she has a lot to share, and I'll be happy to pass the microphone on to her in a few minutes. I'll end by acknowledging the great effort that went into coordinating the journey to indigenization, seeing all these additional events are coming up later today and over the next few days. I'm very aware and grateful for the hard work it's taken to get presentation, guest speakers, ceremonies coordinated, and having to transition them online at the last minute. It could not have been easy, but the investment in time and energy is worth it for the MRU community to have access to these great educational opportunities. And education, I know it's been said by others, education is the way forward. I know some of the scheduled activities that were originally planned have had to be postponed to adhere to new health measures, but for many faculty and staff and students, they've stepped up to share their research and hold space for important discussions online, and I sincerely thank them for that. I'd also like to thank the people who have taken the time to attend, who want to learn, to be better informed with new perspectives to consider while doing their jobs, or those who might want a better understanding of the different backgrounds and experiences of their peers. Thank you to everyone who's joined us here today, and especially those of you who are wearing orange shirts. There are a lot of people here on campus who are showing their support, and I think it's really meaningful. Take care, stay well, and thanks for contributing to making Mount Royal a great place. Over to you, John.
Thank you, President Rahilly. I'd now like to call upon Dr. Elizabeth Evans, Interim Provost and Vice President Academic, who will talk today and make an important announcement. Dr. Evans.
Thank you very much, John, for that introduction, and thank you, President Rahilly, for your opening remarks. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is a day to honor and commemorate. There are many ways to honor Indian residential school survivors, but as educators, it's appropriate to reflect on how and what we teach while considering who is in the classroom and what they have experienced before choosing Mount Royal University. I am proud of our historians who share sources from the past that tell the horrific story of Canada's residential school system. It's rewarding to hear about faculty who are challenging how to lead a class and structure assignments based on anti-racist practices that stray from standard structures often found in academia. I'm also inspired by innovative technology at MRU that highlights the Blackfoot language and offers guidance with pronunciations and our understanding of the language. When I hear vulnerable recounts of what members of our Indigenous community have experienced or have had to overcome, I feel driven to keep going because the work has only just begun. Indigenization at Mount Royal University impacts every academic area. This is necessary to create a culture of mutual respect and to uphold our commitment to Indigenous education. We are deeply invested in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action, which inform new initiatives and changes to the status quo. One recent change that I am pleased to announce today is the name change of an important office we have here on campus that has been instrumental in supporting faculty and students through our indigenization process. The Office of Academic Indigenization will now be known as the Office of Indigenization and Decolonization. This is a necessary distinction as we further implement and renew our goals around indigenization. Many great achievements have come out of this area since its launch in 2018, and I know there is more to come with this change that includes an intention to guide and support the reconciliation work that is happening across campus. With Dr. Linda Manyguns leading the Office of Indigenization and Decolonization, I'm confident that MRU's commitment will continue to be evident and the university will continue to meet the changing needs of our community. Since coming to MRU in May, Dr. Manyguns has already provided incredible vision and has shown dedication to advancing indigenization and decolonization on our campus. She has made herself available for numerous consultations and collaborations while moving forward with her own efforts that often challenges our community while offering numerous educational resources and opportunities to seek and share knowledge. I would like to leave plenty of time for Dr. Manyguns, who will close these remarks. So I will end by expressing gratitude to our students, faculty, and staff who continue to show up, ready to work towards an even better Mount Royal University. Thank you very much, and over to you, John.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Linda Manyguns, Associate Vice President, and to speak about her role in the Office of Indigenization and Decolonization. Linda.
Thank you, John. And thank you, Elizabeth and Tim and our elders for the wonderful prayer. And thank you, John. And thank you, Kelly and Spirit and all the people who have worked so hard, all of the team that faithfully met and worked through all of the changing environment in order to make sure that we all had an opportunity to join in to this journey to indigenization. I think I'll start with just my fundamental belief that drives and kind of informs the way I think about this work for this office. And that is, the most important thing is that I trust people and I trust in the goodness of people. And this office will make every effort to provide access through the truth, access to knowledge that will show how colonization has distorted the reality that we're living in right now, as we know it, distorted for its own benefit. The most important factor here is that knowledge matters. And through knowledge, we can learn and we can change and reshape the world that we live in. A truthful knowledge will even the playing field and create equality for all. This office will rely in all matters on the principles and values that animate the Indigenous way of life. We will need this in order to understand and decolonize and to indigenize. We're working on an Indigenous strategy. And that Indigenous strategy is going to be tied to the MRU strategy, to centralize it and place it in a meaningful position so that this journey can be continued forever. To decolonize and indigenize means that initiatives must be approached in a good way. Our purpose is to provide truthful education. This office will create a web of connections with our community, our external community, all around us, and connect it to the internal MRU community, so that our students and our professors and our different entities within the organization can move back and forward through these connections in order to establish good relationships. And I think about that in the way that Roy Bear Chief talks about the spider web and how we're all connected. And so I'm using that vision as a way to connect with our external people to enhance learning and to enhance our relationships. Our goal is to expand inclusion to every student so that they can feel that they belong here. To create an inclusive environment so all students can thrive and have the best educational experience possible at MRU. Today, we're announcing not only the opening of the Office of Indigenization and Decolonization, but also we're opening the Eastern Door. The Eastern Door is the quadrants that represent the Indigenous strategy. Of course, using the medicine wheel with Northeast, South, and West. The Eastern Door is the door that represents our students, the youth. To the west is a community. To the north is our administrative board and Tim and Elizabeth. Those elements that actually oversee the university. And to the south are our faculty and the Aniskum Center, the people that hold up and support our students as they move through these processes. But with the opening of the Eastern Door, it is an open invitation to every student on campus that has an elder whose name they want to put forward, so that those elders and those names that come from the communities will be taken in, will go through proper protocol, we'll teach the students how to do that. It'll come through SAMRU because they're the proper representatives of the students. And those names will be brought forward, going through protocol, and they will assist us in developing the other pieces of the quadrant. As well, this group of elders and their names will truly reflect the student body that exists on campus. So if we have Cree people, if we have people from Nunavut, if we have people from BC and Saskatchewan, they can bring the names of their elders forward. And those will form the foundation for as advisors. But one thing I want to make clear, that this does not disturb the existing relationships that are already in place. This is in addition. Okay, just to be clear, so that we're not seeing this as a disruption in any way of the already existing relationships, but rather strengthens. Okay. We'll have more information about how that process will work. You'll see signs all around campus that will be inviting the names of elders, and this will be promoted quite prolifically in many ways as these invitations are opened. Our other initiative that will be begun, I think it has started on campus, and that is through the TV screens and whatnot. There are sayings happening We're talking about decolonizing. And so we're going to start to put some of these truths forward that have not been part of the academic record. Things such as, did you know Aboriginal people were mining 500 years before contact? Did you know that Christopher Columbus actually met Indigenous people in Ireland 16 years before he even got on his boat? We were already there. These are facts that are known, that should be part of all of the curriculum. And it's our responsibility as educators to build a new history that is inclusive of all of these facts. And that's our goal. So we are all in this together. And with good hearts and good minds, we will decolonize and indigenize together. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manyguns. We appreciate your leadership in presenting the journey to indigenization. Now I'd like to introduce Spirit River Striped Wolf, President, Students Association of Mount Royal University. Spirit?
Yes, thank you. Again, Daniku Makoi Omaka. Hello, my name is Spirit River Striped Wolf. My Blackfoot name is Enduring Running Wolf. The elder that gave me that name gave it to me after having heard of the adversity I've gone through in my life. I was born with a few medical issues where I had to go through numerous surgeries in my childhood, which always made me a little bit different from my peers. I also grew up with a lot of domestic violence in my household, a lot of abuse, anger. But there's also a lot of stories that I have been proud of. I wrote an award-winning paper at the International Social Innovation Research Conference in 2018, which is about intergenerational trauma. I was selected to be an Indigenous youth leader in 2018 by the Senate of Canada, where I testified to the Standing Committee on Aboriginal Peoples, and I was elected to serve as the representation executive for SAMRU. The elder told me that when he heard about my story, he saw a wolf running continuously, that despite hardship, I would continue to endure, which is kind of what I want to talk about today and why I think enduring is such an important word when I think of truth and reconciliation. Enduring doesn't just mean writing fancy papers and winning fancy titles. For Indigenous people, enduring means simply to live, and it can mean simply to live. For Indigenous people, to live is an act of courage and a showing of tenacity. I'm a second generation survivor of the 60 scoop, of the day schools, and of the residential schools. And we can get into sociological terms about it and say that I struggle with intergenerational trauma as an Indigenous student here on campus. But I think that kind of beats around the bush almost. What I, and I think many Indigenous people endure against are something I like to call, not that I like to call it, but something that I prefer to call is the wounds of genocide. That's why it was so important to me last year when I moved that MRU recognize the genocide of Indigenous peoples, which successfully passed. Because calling it anything less than genocide, I think degrades all of the suffering and deaths that Indigenous people have and are currently going through, especially youth on reserve. Youth that could have one day been your peer on campus, a friend, a partner, or a colleague. If you're not Indigenous, when you see the orange shirts around you today, just remember this quote from the Missing Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two Spirits final inquiry. It says that this genocide is and has been empowered by colonial structures, evidenced notably by the Indian Act, the 60 scoop, residential schools, and breaches of human and Indigenous rights. Reconciliation just cannot happen until we recognize that truth first and foremost. And I'm really honestly excited about the renaming of the new office and how that will contribute to furthering that understanding of truth. So that's all I really have to share. I hope you all enjoy the rest of what MRU has planned for TRC Day.
Thank you so much, Spirit. We had elders opening, and we had an elder closing. You're so wise, and we so appreciate your leadership in the student part of Mount Royal University and in our nation as well too. Thank you, Linda, for your work again in presenting the leadership around the journey to indigenization. We would also like to acknowledge the faculty, staff, and students who've been organizing the events, including Dr. Andrew Barerobe, Dr. Catherine McGowan, Valerie Fox, Dr. Richard Fogo, Steve Kootenai-Jobin, Maria Smalllegs, Kelly Trin, Dion Simon, and so many others. Kinanastical Mitnanau. For you, we are all grateful. I'd also like you to know that the sessions that have been going on and will go on are being recorded so that you can view the presentations held over the journey of indigenization on the landing pages and in future learning pages. This morning, I listened to Elder Roy Bearchief read, "You Hold Me Up to the Children." I was reminded the children initiated this day by recounting their residential school experiences to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and those of us who attended that to listen. These now make up an important part of the Truth and Reconciliation reports and contents of the National Center for the Truth and Reconciliation, housed in the University of Manitoba and online at nctr.ca. When I was listening to Elder Bearchief, I was also reminded about who our actions towards reconciliation are for. Our children, our children's children, and their great-great-grandchildren, the Chipanak. As a way to conclude today's event, I again would like to thank Alveea and Spike Eagle Speaker for the opening of today's events and for the words by Dr. Rahilly, Dr. Evans, Dr. Manyguns, and Spirit River. Thank you, and thank you for the viewers for participating. I'd also like to take time to express our gratitude to the elders and residential school survivors who have gifted us with their teachings and their presence over the years. Your truth and friendship has contributed and will continue to contribute to the indigenization journey of Mount Royal University. Kakiao awasis, pistie kakoiseo. Every child matters. Ekose. Thank you all.